When we're going to plant an area like this, we'll try to make sure it's well drained and it's very shady. That's two of the biggest things that you need to look at. Is there enough drainage there, and is it going to be well shaded? And that's one of the biggest reasons why a north-facing slope is usually the most preferred, because that's where wild ginseng usually is able to survive longer naturally. So, we'll try to pick an area as best as we can to suit the north-facing slope. And so once we found that area, then we'll come in, we'll clear all the brush out of it, we'll pick all the logs and the sticks and debris and stuff up. Once we got that, then if there's any trees that we take out to get our equipment around through, we'll go ahead and take those out. And then we'll just, we'll get our tractor and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but we do it with cultivator. So what we'll do, we'll just go around and we'll cultivate the soil up real good. And once we've got that, we'll get all the rocks and stuff like that picked out of it. And then we'll come back and we'll usually put a disc on the back of the tractor. Once we put a disc on, then we'll run a disc over that area. And what that disc does, it gives us finer grooves. They're not so deep and intense for the seed to fall into. And then once we've got that like that, then we just literally just figure out, okay, we're probably going to put 20 pounds of seed on this area. So I'll get that pound of seed ready. And then we'll just broadcast. I did it so many different ways. We did it with cedars, we've transplanted. And I find it just as easy just to broadcast the seed. So what we'll do, we'll just broadcast the seed over that entire area. And then we'll come back with garden rakes. And we'll rake it in with garden rakes, get all the seed covered up. And then we got to mulch it. It's easier for us to use straw for mulch because it's more easy and convenient to get a hold of. So we'll come in and then we'll blow straw over that entire area. And usually that'll mulch it real good, and then the leaves will come down in the fall. They'll lay on top of the straw and gives me a good extra blanket for the winter. But usually if I get too many leaves laying on top of the straw, especially when we're talking about seedlings, what we'll do is come in like early March or something like that, and then we'll take and literally just hit the leaves that are sticking on top of the straw, so they're not layered like that where the plants can easily get up through it. And usually once we've done that, then we seem to have a real good sprout. We have a good germination rate that way. And that's usually the way we continue to go. And we like to say, we like to have a slope, we like to have well shaded areas. So I would encourage anybody to, if they're thinking about growing ginseng, pick yourself out a real nice place, get yourself some seed, and give it a shot. The biggest problem with growing ginseng would be probably your disease. There's places where the sun hits too much. A lot of those places where you're going to get more disease. And so, that's particularly common when you're raising ginseng, especially this close together. There's many different ways to grow it, but we tend to try to grow it fairly thick. But there's some pros and cons to that too. Because when you're growing it thicker, obviously you're going to have more disease. And so then you have to come back and combat the disease with sprays. And so depending on how thick it is, the more you have to keep on top of it. You have natural enemies. You got your poachers, your thieves, and then you also have a natural thief, and that's a vole with a V. It's more like a shrew or vole. It's a little bit like a mouse. I mean, he tunnels under the ground and he literally loves ginseng. I see more problems with the deer browsing the ginseng now than I did years ago. They seem to be taking a liking to it. There's some ways that you can combat the deer. With this, we've used pepper spray, we've used garlic spray. That seems to deter them. If you can hang up some scarecrows, things like that, we even have them hanging up around here. And with those scarecrows, they'll get used to them over time, but then just come back and change the clothes on them. Maybe give them an orange hat or something like that, and that does make a difference. So once they get used to that scarecrow, try changing it up with changing their clothes and things like that. Maybe put a little bit more scent around there, maybe a little bit of perfume from your wife. Anything like that will help, and eventually it'll help to keep them away. So there's lots of things that you have to do over a course of 8 and 10 years, but if you can be successful, it's well worth it in the long run.